We're moving on now. 4 Kenyan citizens who were jailed in South Sudan for allegedly defrauding the government are to be released after a deal was struck between the presidents of the two countries. The 4 started serving their sentence of 72 years in 2015. The victims say they were caught up in a war between South Sudanese business rivals and they were not given a fair hearing. Their families have been running a public campaign to secure their release since their sentencing in 2015 and appealed to the UN Human Rights Agency to assist. And the African Union has agreed to evacuate some 15,000 African migrants in Libya before the end of the year. The Deputy Chairman of the AU Commission, Kwesi Kwate, stated that the repatriations will be voluntary and will be done in partnership with the International Organization for Migration. At least 20,000 migrants are being held in government detention centers in Libya. The move follows reports that migrants are being sold in slave markets in the North African state, sparking global outrage. An urgent evacuation plan for migrants in Libyan detention camps was drawn at an AU-EU summit in Ivory Coast last week. Mr. Kwate said the AU will work with member states to facilitate the evacuation and sustainable reintegration of migrants into their communities. And Somali leaders are also calling for the lifting of the ban of an arms embargo to boost capability of local forces, saying extra equipment is needed to offset troop cutbacks to Somalia's African Union peacekeeping force to avoid compromising the mission. The mission's leader says that the African Union's plan to trim its Somalia peacekeeping force will hurt the mission unless extra equipment is found to offset the troop decrease.
The force of 22,000 deployed a decade ago is set to lose 1,000 soldiers this year as part of a long-term plan to pull out of the country and hand security to the Somali army. AMISOM is confronting the Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab, whose ranks have been swelled by Islamic State fighters fleeing military setbacks in Libya and Syria. Militants killed more than 500 people in an attack on the capital Mogadishu last month. It was the deadliest such attack in the country's recent history. AMISOM deployed to help secure the government of a country that since 1991 has struggled to establish central control. The peacekeepers helped push Al-Shabaab out of Mogadishu, but the group still frequently attacked civilian and military targets.
Unless we have a proportionate force multiplier in terms of equipment, in terms of IED defeat capability, in terms of intelligence, electronic intelligence, that will have a very considerable effect on our yes. And we believe that the UN will find ways and means of covering, making up for the gap that might result from this drawdown.
A diplomat from Mozambique was speaking on the sidelines of a security conference in Mogadishu. He said it was hard to estimate the number of Al-Shabaab fighters. Somalia's Minister of Internal Security, Mohamed Abukar Islo, says the government wants the lifting of an arms embargo.
The challenges are that our forces do not have enough weapons, as there is an arms embargo on Somalia. We need the embargo lifted so that our forces can get enough arms and military equipment. Somali security forces also need training and all necessary support to defend us from the enemy.
The United Nations imposed an arms embargo on Somalia shortly after the nation plunged into civil war in the early 1990s. It partially lifted the ban in 2013 to help equip government forces.
A German tourist has been reportedly killed and a guide wounded in an attack in northeastern Ethiopia near the border with Eritrea. Reports say the German national was in a group of tourists who were visiting the Erta El volcano, a popular destination for holiday makers, when he was shot. It's not clear who carried out the attack, but the Ethiopian government says it's investigating the killing. Many tourists visit the site of the Erta El volcano, and local authorities say that security forces have now been deployed to the area where an armed separatist group operates. In 2012, 5 tourists were killed and 4 others abducted after gunmen ambushed them in the area. And the third United Nations Environment Assembly is held in Nairobi, Kenya, drawing more than 4,000 people from over 100 countries and regions to discuss measures aiming at zero pollution. Present at the assembly were heads of state, cabinet members, UN officials, business people and NGO activists. The three-day meeting is themed towards a pollution-free planet and is expected to finalize a global declaration on combat over rampant pollution which threatens human lives, economies and ecosystems. According to the United Nations Environment Programme, 12.6 million people lose their lives to deteriorating environmental conditions each year.
I think we see a very, very rapid improvement of the air in Beijing, and by the way, many other Chinese cities as well. From the combination of the public awareness, people really want to see a cleaner air, and city and national authorities really taking action. At the Party Congress very recently, President Xi Jinping really did set out a beautiful China and ecological civilization as the great aims. And of course, city authorities, they need to respond to that by reducing pollution in the cities. And then you need metros, you need bike sharing, you need electrical mobility, and of course you need to close down coal plants.
Let's bring things back home now. Nigeria showcased over 90 locally made wines, liquors, health drinks and unique traditional mixes to over 15,000 consumers and investors at the International Drinks Festival in Lagos to try and penetrate its own huge beverage market, which is dominated by imported brands. Over 20,000 consumers and investors attended the three-day festival, which ended on Sunday. Hot water, millet, guinea corn, sweet potatoes, ginger, clove, honey and dates to add extra sweetness. Those are the ingredients for Ene Onwuka's traditional Nigerian beverage known as kunu. It's a non-alcoholic drink from the northern part of the country that Onwuka started bottling and selling last year. The 39-year-old banker does this as a hobby. Onwuka's Kunuski brand was one of the 90 Nigerian beverages showcased at the just concluded International Drinks Festival held in Lagos to market local products alongside some of the big global brands that dominate the West African nation's market.
I think the word international actually struck me. I'm like, okay, it's an opportunity for me to bring Kunuski out, because a lot of people actually want to drink Kunu, but they don't know where to get it from. They want to be sure of the hygiene. They want to be sure of the people making it. They want to be sure that this is okay for them to take.
Out of 200 drinks companies, 90 were fully Nigerian.
Drinks are made in Nigeria, proudly Nigerian drinks. That's what they in. All our brands are proudly Nigerian. So we have carbonated drinks, we have malts, we have chocolate drinks, we have gin, we have brandy, we have rum, we have red wine as well. So those are our staples.
After a drastic drop in oil prices, Africa's largest exporter of crude has been working on diversifying the economy to develop local sectors. Still ahead on Network Africa, the 14th largest diamond in the world is sold for over $6 million in New York. Do join us again.